it's a content focused, it's an immersion into my way of thinking, where I think a workshop is an immersion, but it's really got this long-term effect. I'm not sure how I can explain it. But I always tell my clients, if you want me for like a full day, hire Buddy or Ted. You'll get better value out of it, especially from no market value. They're but does that really matter? So yeah. I'm lucky at what I do. Last week was actually, and today is another one. I record today, but had booked me to speech and they want to go virtual. So it was live. Week is recorded. Both of them pay full speech fees, and answer saying discount for virtual, and I go, no discount is the same work front. If any harder to do, if you get cues from, there's no physical, no energy pulling from looking at a screen. Granted, I'm people, but so. By the way, I put until 10:30 today, which is 11:30 time.
Yeah, ready to go because this mic's enough, and I think we can just rock. And let me tell you what I was going to do. I was going to start off with the customer and for the book and so forth. Because big piece, there's a number 5 things in that book that excite me. I've read
the 5. No.
Yeah, it's 5 of them. So my is going to be around this. We talk a lot of B to E, business to E story. We're a family company on B. And that caught on 3 or 4 years ago when we started using the term B. It's not kind of own that. Not a lot of people pushing that term. And so I'm going to say to you, like, yeah, one of the things that intrigues me about all of the customers, talk about how customers and employees parallel and go through these 5. You talk
I saw questions. You have 8, and we can cut that. Let's add them up here. Storytelling is very powerful. Just move your, by the way, read. Let's see what else, listeners. This is easy. Okay.
The other thing that I after that sent, and I spent more time on the book, so I make sure you get the 5 calls. I want to talk employees and customers. Say how cold, bad word, how you say that in the book. I want you to be able to talk moments of magic. And then I thought Santa Claus was one, even though it's way into the book. I thought
I got to remember that.
Catchy.
The Santa remind
Claus paradox was.
I vaguely read that. Whoop, that's the wrong book. My cold.
Here it is. Do you remember when Gwen Santa Claus went to a miracle on Third Street when a customer? There's a paradox of work, one the New York Times writer David confirms the post on the technology blog. The local dealership for replacing the 6-year-old audio Toyota Mini. Gist of the service response was, we could put a new one in for you, but you'll pass and get more features with a non-factory model. In stuck with Pogue, and it instantly reminded me of the Santa Claus story when a company
who sent him down the street.
And when it comes to people are upfront with us about the best options we face, we tend to remember the experience, remain loyal to the organization. Call it the Santa Claus paradox.
Yeah, that's the whole idea that the customer, it's more important to take care of the customer than it is to sell the customer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I thought,
thanks for you. You won't believe how many things I've written. I just can't remember. Thanks for remembering.
No worries. And then the convenience revolution. It's the 7th book, so I'm going to say that. I love the line. You want to make it easier to do business with you than your competition. And I love this one. You gave these examples of a convenience store, hotel, mini fridge, Amazon, and Uber, and how Uber disrupted the entire taxi cab industry. I love this from a storytelling standpoint, because then you come right back with, so maybe you don't think you can disrupt an industry, but the concept of convenience can simply disrupt your competition.
Yep.
I think that's powerful storytelling, because what I do is when I talk to clients, they'll often say that I'm doing that. Like, I'll use an example about Starbucks or something. They'll go, well, we can't market like Starbucks. And I say, the same thing as you. I say, it's not about you becoming Starbucks. It's about you taking on your competition. So I love that line. Then I thought if you wanted to run through the 6 real quick without spending a whole lot of time on them. So let's go ahead and get started.
How long are your interviews typically lasting?
Typically about 30 to 40 minutes.
Perfect. And you know what? So I'm going to run through, like when we do the 5 cults and the 6 convenience, I'm going to move through those pretty quickly so that it allows you to ask the questions as opposed to me. Because I mean, I could do an entire hour on just 5 cults.
Right? I will. And that's what I love to do. So I'll respond to your answer with read and react questions. So, and then I'm going to call you customer service and experience expert.
That's perfect.
That's what I got from your video, because I watched a couple of your videos as well the past few days. All right. So Marcel, are we ready?
Yeah, we're ready on my end.
So we're recording on 2 different platforms to make sure we have it so we can't screw it up. And we'll come in 3, 2, 1. It's the No BS Marketing Show. I'm Dave Mastovich, CEO and founder of Massolutions, the world's only no bullshit marketing firm. Today, I'm excited to have back a fantastic guest with a wealth of information. He's written his 7th book. He's customer service and experience expert, Shep Hyken. Shep, welcome to the No BS Marketing Show.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to be back.
Well, I love the book, The Call to the Customer, which has its latest edition out. So we're going to talk about 2 books today. You had 7. Your 7th one is out, but you also did an updated version of The Call to the Customer. So I'm going to dig into that one first, because a number of things excite me about the customer experience in that book. And one in particular, you talk about how employees and customers are on a parallel track and go through these 5 cults. And we talk a lot at Mass Solutions about B2E, business to employees, storytelling. So when I read that in the book, and I thought, I want to ask Shep that as the first question, talk about the parallel between communicating and making your customers and employees both happy.
Sure. Well, I think it's important to kind of go through the 5 cults first. And first of all, I think let's get that word cult out of the way. People go, cult, scary word. Masses of religious fanatics getting together doing. No, don't worry about the word cult. Cult is not a dirty word. It actually comes from the Latin word cultus, which is about care and tending. And somehow or another, it's morphed into a group of people with similar interests, common interests, all moving forward together in the right direction. And if you think about it, what that is a group of my friends that meet at the park every Sunday morning to go biking, because that's our ritual. You know, we like to get our exercise, either jog or bike. That, in effect, is a cult. So cult is not a dirty word. It's actually a great word to describe or use as a word to help, I guess, bring in the word culture, because so much of what drives a customer experience is culture, which has to do with your question about the inside of the organization, the employees being just as important, I think, to focus on, if not even more so, than the outside. So let's go through these cults real quick, if that's okay. And I'm going to go through them, super fast, only because, I mean, we could spend hours on it. But there are 5 cults. They are uncertainty, alignment, experience, ownership, and amazement. Now, amazement is the cult you want to reside in, but every customer, and I'll go with customers first, and then I'll talk about employees. Every customer, when they decide to do business with you, even if it's the first time, if they've heard you're great, they're never going to be sure until they experience it themselves. Hence the cult of uncertainty. I hear they're a great company. I'm looking forward to work with them. Let's find out. So as soon as we start to work with that company, we start to get into alignment with the vision that company has for us delivering the value and the experience they're expecting. Once again, I've heard they're great. I want to get into it, see what they're like. And as I start to get into that process, I moved from alignment to the actual experiencing of what I'd hope to get and what they promised they're going to give me. Okay. So experience is nothing more than the actual experience that you have. But what we want to do is we want to make it a positive experience, and we move it into the next level, which is ownership. I want to have my customers own that experience. So if my vision is to create a strong, positive experience, number one, We're going to move them out of uncertainty quickly. They're going to start to work with their people and understand their process. They're going to start to experience, and then they're going to own it when they've come back and they've repeated it. So if you think about owning it, the best way to describe it, because people get hung up, what do you mean own the experience? If you've ever moved into a home or an apartment and you're trying to find the lights on the first night and it's dark, you're stumbling around, you're rubbing your hand on the wall looking for that light switch. But a month from now, you can close your eyes, you can walk in the room, you know exactly where it is. That's the difference between uncertainty, alignment, experience, and then finally ownership, where I actually own it. And that's exactly what we want companies to do, is produce an experience that the customer can predict and own. If that experience is positive, then it moves them into amazement. And amazement is nothing more than an above average experience. And people are like, come on, amazement's got to be more than that. No, it isn't. Once in a while, it's over the top, blow me away. That's the most amazing or over the top experience I've ever had. But amazement, when it comes down to great experience and great service, is when the customer says, we kind of pull it into the ownership mentality. You know what? I love doing business with them because they always, hence that's the ownership, they always respond quickly. They always are knowledgeable. They're always so friendly. And here's a good one. Even when there's a problem, I know I can always count on them to resolve it, which means if you're in that cult of amazement with your customers and there's a problem, the first time that problem happens, you go straight back to uncertainty until they learn that if you bring those problems to them, they'll resolve them properly and to your total, happiness. And that's what keeps people in amazement. So that's the 5 phases or cults, if you will. And
well, Shep, let me jump in a little bit. So I love to learn for my company and for my audience and my clients. So I want to tell you a couple of things. I want to tell you a couple of things and ask a question. So from a mass solutions standpoint, being an intangible product, being marketing, which has many definitions, which is why we even use the term no BS marketing, because so many people in marketing call a tiny piece of marketing and claim they're doing marketing. So we have that uncertainty with every prospect that we pitch and every client that we close. One of the things that we try to do to overcome that uncertainty and move into alignment is we have an initial kickoff meeting that manages expectations and accountabilities and activities of both parties. And we
that's
immediately
alignment
show them,
right there.
Yeah.
That's
your alignment. Good. So we're doing okay. So we immediately show them the 100-day activation planner, and we begin to get them to experience the no BS concept, which is very direct and honest and transparent and vulnerability. My team, we've all worked on becoming more vulnerable with clients. And so I think we get to that ownership stage. I love the one point you made. I wanted to ask about it because sometimes Mass Solutions is amazing, and my team is a lot of talented creatives, and they'll be amazing, but we're human. And we tell people this during the alignment stage. We say, we're human, and there's going to be times that you think we missed the mark. You need to tell us, and we're going to tell you our rationale and try to fix it. But go on about how when you've been in amazement and then you are off the mark, what do you do then?
Sure. And to your point, and Dave, I know you are a fan of the strategic coach, and you and I talked about that. I've been going for over 20 years, and I have a friend of mine, Todd Hopkins, who's also there. He's a great entrepreneur. He owns basically a janitorial company that franchises work all over the country. Great company. And one of the things that he has in his contract with clients is that they have to promise to let him know or let the franchisee know when there's a problem, when something's wrong, because you can't fix what you don't know. And it's in his agreement. So he holds people accountable to that, his customers accountable to that, which I think is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So when there's a problem of any kind, I think it's important to not only resolve the problem, but it's also important to restore confidence. Hence, you want to move people from uncertainty back to amazement. If they've loved you and all of a sudden there's a problem, it's like judgment day, right? It's like, we've got to fix this or else they're not going to love us. Or the customer's saying, let's see how they respond now. Things have been going great. So 5 things. It's a 5-step process. Number 1 is to acknowledge there's a problem. Number 2 is to apologize. Number 3 is to fix it or discuss the resolution. Number 4 is to act with ownership. In other words, you don't blame everything else or other people. Number 5 is you act with urgency. Acknowledge and apology. You can flip those 1 and 2, it doesn't matter, but
Well,
acknowledge,
let me ask you a
apologize.
question there.
Yep.
Let me ask you a question there, because again, a professional services firm, one of the things that I think we've worked as our culture is to acknowledge and apologize. We don't use those words, but we actually do that. But I think throughout my life, my experience has been most people struggle to be vulnerable and admit a mistake and to learn from a mistake. So talk about that a little bit.
That's hard. And, you've got to get people in the right mindset to do that. So resolving the problem, actually what happens is you almost don't have to admit ownership to a problem. Even, the line is, it may not be my fault, but it's my opportunity. So you own it that way. But the ability to say you're sorry is often not, I'm sorry I did this to you. No, I'm sorry this happened is an easier way of saying it. And by the way, I'm sorry are two very powerful words. And what you have around it can either support it or it can bring it down. Saying, I'm sorry this happened is just as powerful as anything you can do. I'm sorry this happened, but I wasn't even here last week when you were in and that problem took place. Destroys the apology completely.
Right.
So just, I'm sorry this happened. This isn't the way we like to do business. Let's see what we can do to resolve this. In a sense, you've taken ownership. So one day I'm having dinner with a group of friends, and we all ordered, and by the way, a really nice restaurant, and we all had salads. The server, from the very beginning, was terrible. And when he set his salads down, there was like a half a salad on the guy's plate next to me, and everybody else had really nice looking salads. And my buddy says, excuse me, but what happened to the rest of my salad? And the server looks at it and says, hey, I don't make them, I just serve them. And he walked away. He did the exact opposite of everything, other than he did acknowledge by saying, I don't, whatever. He looked at it and he acknowledged that, yeah, there's a problem, but he's not doing anything about it. Now, what would a good server have done? Well, first of all, probably would have noticed beforehand, but let's say it happened. The accident happened. The salads went down. A good server might have said, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I can see, I wouldn't want that either. Let me go back and get this fixed right away. And in that very short sentence or two, all 5 of those concepts were taking place. The acknowledgement, oh my gosh, I wouldn't eat that either. I'm sorry. Let me go back, meaning I'm owning it and I'm going to get you a new one. That's the fix. And I'm doing it right away. All of those 5 things happened right away. And I think that's the key. If you write down those 5 and you put them on a little card and you put it next to your phone, the next time you have any confrontation with a customer, a fellow employee, partner, spouse, whatever, think about these 5, and I'll bet that they work just perfectly. And by the way, for the smallest problems and the largest crises, these 5 steps are powerful and they work. If you took a look at how Starbucks handled the crisis of almost not quite 2 years ago, when a couple of their customers were arrested for sitting in the store, and basically it was racial bias, and how Howard Schultz handled it so well. He did exactly these 5 steps. He was in San Francisco. It happened in Philadelphia, but he was on the phone with the press, literally it's almost as fast as he found out about it, which was in the same day, but he was acknowledging it. He was apologizing on behalf of all of Starbucks. He was telling them, I'm going to fly right out there tonight. I'll be there tomorrow morning to talk to the press, to everyone else, to figure out exactly what's going on. And we will let you know how we're going to resolve this to try to avoid it happening in the future. And it was like a PR nightmare turned into just a PR opportunity in the best way. And I don't know if you remember, there were 2 African-American gentlemen who were waiting for a friend. The manager said, you haven't ordered anything, you have to leave. One of them had to go to the bathroom, which is what brought the 2 guys to the manager's attention. And she says, it's only for customers, you have to leave. And they didn't leave. She called the police. And as they were being escorted out in handcuffs, the friend comes in. So what happened, obviously all the apologies and things were taken care of, but it happened within a couple of months. Starbucks shut down the entire North American operation for an afternoon, hours. And the cost of that was millions, not just in lost revenue, but in hours of people's time, of employees' time that were spent to learn about racial sensitivity and different types of things related to that. And Howard Schultz was smart enough to say, this is not the ultimate solution. This is the beginning of something here. We don't ever want this to happen again. And the only way we can make it hopefully not happen much at all is if we make people aware. And I would love if other companies would follow suit on this. And I mean, he just became the case study and the great example. And there's a great story for you. Speaking of stories.
Definitely a great story. So I'm going to go through the 5. Acknowledge, apologize. What's number 3?
Acknowledge, apologize, fix it, or discuss what the resolution is going to be. Number 4 is to own it. Act with an attitude of ownership. Once again, not blaming others. And number 5, act with urgency.
Okay. That's from the Call to the Customer, and that's Shep, Hyken, Customer Service and Experience Expert. He's got his 7th book out, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, called The Convenience Revolution. But we're still on the Call to the Customer. Shep, what are moments of magic?
Sure. And I don't want to get away from the alignment with the customer also being with these 5 cults with the employee, because that was one of your first questions.
It was.
Like a good politician, I steered you away from that. But let's talk about the employees, and then we'll talk about moments of magic, because moments of magic is a concept that goes through every one of my books, from the very first book I wrote titled Moments of Magic. So the idea that we talked about customers going through these same phases, employees go through the same phases. If I am coming to work for your company, and it's like I'm excited about the job, I've interviewed, I sure hope it's the job of my dreams. You see where I am right there? I'm in uncertainty. I'm excited about it, but I don't really know what it's going to be like until I get there. And once I get there, you onboard me. That's alignment. You're getting me to understand who you are, what's about, policies, procedures, et cetera, et cetera. Now I'm going to start to experience. It's not going to happen overnight, but that experience over time to where I get comfortable, to where I really feel like I'm part of the team, is leading me up to that ownership portion of this. That's the 4th cult, if you will. And once I'm in that ownership place, do I love being here? Is it the kind of place I can see myself being here a year from now, 5 years from now? Can I see her being here my entire career? That's what we want. We want to create. So in another one of my books called The Amazement Revolution, I use the example of a fun environment. FUN is an acronym, not fun like let's have a party, haha, but fun stands for fulfilled, unique, and next. So I'm fulfilled. I like being here. They exploit me for my unique talents. And next is I'm excited about what's going to come next. Brian Keeley, who at the time of writing the book was the CEO of Baptist Health South down in Florida, had a concept he called creating destination employment, meaning when you come here, we want this to be the last place you ever come to work. That's what our goal is. And if we can create that, we've done our job. And I think getting people into the cult of amazement as quickly as possible and keeping them there is what it's all about. So when our employees love being there, when they're experiencing this and they say, I love working there, I can't imagine working anywhere else. I love my team. I love my manager. It's still work. Don't get me wrong, but we could be doing a lot of other things we don't enjoy as much. So that's how it works. It's like they almost run parallel. If a new customer came in about the same time a new employee came in, depending on the type of business, and I think that's definitely your type of business, that customer is going to go through these 5 cults at a certain pace. And if a new employee came on board, they'd probably experience something similar to it.
I love it, because we talk to our clients all the time that you have to make employees as much of a target market as everyone in your customer target market. And B to E storytelling is about the onboarding being told in a story manner, anecdotes and analogies about the company culture, not just the mission statement, 27-word thing that's pithy. So we share your passion about
27 words is a short mission statement. I like that.
Yeah. But even that would be too pithy.
By the way, I just interviewed Terry Yanovich who grew up in Orlando, eventually worked for Disney, left and came back, and was a trainer, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things she said is what Disney does is they don't wait to onboard you once you're hired. They start onboarding you before you're hired and hope that you self-select out if you don't like what you see.
That's terrific.
Yeah, they start to give you the Disney experience, and they have you watch videos. And in the interview, you already know what culture you're getting into. Aside from the reputation, you're actually experiencing the real culture.
I agree about the self-select out. I believe that happens a lot, even with our culture. Whenever I'm talking to someone, I had someone call me about a job the other day, and when I started explaining the mindset, he was like, oh yeah, okay, this isn't for me, because you have to accept individual responsibility when you work for us. You have to think. You're not, and number three, you're not going to have a playbook. You have to have creative problem solving skills, and you're going to get constant feedback, both constructive and positive. And when you tell people that and you lay that out, some people self-select out of the massolutions situation.
They don't like that.
And I used to get really crushed by that. I used to think it was something like maybe the culture was wrong, but then I realized, no, it's actually the culture is appropriate. It's that person wants to punch in and punch out, and that's okay. I don't have anything against anybody that wants to punch in and punch out. You just can't really work in a professional service firm that's using the no BS mantra if you're a punch in, punch out kind of person.
Right. By the way, I love the word mantra. One of the things we talk about in Cult of the Customer is creating the mantra, which is a short one sentence or less phrase that defines your customer service vision. So ours is always be amazing. It's 3 words long. The Ritz-Carlton's 9 words long. We're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. Ace Hardware, the helpful hardware place. And you, no BS. There is a company, Symbiosis, it's called, in Nashville, and their mantra, it's 1 sentence long. We love our customers so much, when we kiss them, their lips bleed. I kind of call that a passion statement more than anything. But it's important that we have these lines, because then it's like our North Star. And, you know, I talk about this in the book. The Beatles had their North Star. They had their mantra. And it wasn't a customer service vision. It was a vision about the success of the Beatles as a group. And it was 3 words long. And every time they went to do something, if we go on this tour in Hamburg or up to Germany, is this going to make us 3 words bigger than, do you know the 3rd word? Elvis.
No. Okay. I did not realize that.
Yeah.
All right.
And when we record this song, is this a song that's going to help make us bigger than Elvis? You know,
wow,
so
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was like their North Star, and it was what their goal was. And so in customer service, we have to have this vision. You know, ours, as I mentioned, always be amazing. And to us, we want to be amazing to our clients. We want to teach our clients to be amazing to their customers, clients, guests, whatever. Of course, we want to create an amazing environment here. And to your point, Dave, when I tell my people, if you are struggling to find something to do because you're not busy, well, that's the beginning of the end. You know, don't say, what should I do now? I don't have anything to do. I'm done for the day. No, you're not. There is so much to do.
Yeah.
So anyway, moments of magic. Let's get into that real quickly. Comes from an idea by Jan Carlson, former president of Scandinavian Airlines. He came out with a concept called the moment of truth in business back in the early 1980s. He eventually wrote a book about it. I love that book. It's a short little book. But the moment of truth in business is defined as whenever a customer comes into contact with any aspect of the business, they form an impression. And Jan Carlson said that impression can be good or it can be bad. And I say, fine, I'll agree with that. But there's also a third way. It can also be average or satisfactory. And I've given terms to the moments of truth, the good, the bad, and the satisfactory. Moments of misery are bad. Moments of mediocrity or average. And by the way, mediocre is kind of an ugly word. And then a moment of magic is anything that's positive. Magic is not over the top, blow me away. Now, here's a real important concept. When we talk about customer amazement, again, I mentioned this earlier, you don't need to be over the top, but you need to be consistent in giving a positive experience. A moment of magic is anything that's positive. Could be a little positive or a whole lot positive. It could be over the top, or it could be just, you know what, they always call me back so quickly. They're amazing. You know, that's, you know, how hard is it to call somebody back within a timely fashion? It shouldn't be that difficult, but that's what amazing companies do. So a moment of magic is above average. Amazement is the predictable above average experience. Make sense? So, and so I love these little terms that I've come up with, you know, moments of misery, moments of mediocrity. By the way, on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is bad and 5 is amazement, where's average or satisfactory? It's 3, right? So how much better than 3 do you have to be to get a 5? So I had a great opportunity to interview Horst Schultz, who's the co-founder and first president of the Ritz-Carlton hotel chain. And he said, when we set out to create one of the finest brands in the world, we knew that all we had to do was be, are you ready for this? 10% better than average. all the time. And if you think about it, scale of 1 to 5, where 3 is in the middle, that means a 3.3 consistently will help you become iconic, will help you become amazing, will help you become, one of the finest brands in the world.
Shep Hyken providing us no BS nuggets, 10% better than average all the time, the Ritz-Carlton model. Shep is a customer service and experience expert. He's written his 7th book. So let's take some time and talk about the 7th book. I held up the call to the customer earlier. This is The Convenience Revolution. It's your 7th book. And I tell you what, it is just, when I started reading it, I looked at it and I thought there's so many nuggets in here that I wanted to ask you about. And the first line that you say is you have to make it easier to do business with you than your competition.
Yeah.
You're talking about how this whole mindset that we all have in this culture, which is the convenience culture, the attention culture, all of that stuff. And you're talking about how it has to be easier to do business with you than your competition.
Yeah. So this is a great story in itself. When I went to write this book, I started to look at all the companies that I love doing business with. And I said, why do I like them over the competitor? Why do I choose them over the competitor? And the answer was, you know what? They're easier to do business with. And what's the easiest company in the world to do business with? And by the way, I love them. Some people don't, but almost everybody loves them. And that company is Amazon. They make it so easy. And so I've done this as a format for some of my books where I use one company as a case study through the entire book to show that all the concepts can work for one organization, but you don't have to have all of them. You can have maybe just one of them or 2 or 3. In this case, there's 6 convenience principles. I have a business that I've chosen to do business with them over their competitor. Even after doing business with the competitor for more than 25 years, I chose this company for one reason. They delivered. And now, by the way, it's standard. Okay. But at the time they were the only one that did that. And I thought, wow, and they didn't really charge any more to do it. So I digress a moment. I want to share with you the story. As I went to write the book, I came up with all this research. We had over 300 some odd companies. I had little Post-its all over the wall in my office of these different companies. We narrowed it down to 6 convenience principles, and we took 5 case studies for each one. B2B, B2C. We should have put a B to E in there for you just to make you happy, Dave. But it was the idea of, business to consumer or business to business. It doesn't matter the kind of business you're in. And I went to shop this with an agent. I tried to get an agent so that I would get a bigger advance, et cetera, et cetera. And the agent says, you have no empirical proof that this concept works. This is all your opinion. I go, all my opinion, every one of these companies are successful and they're all listed as you read through how easy they are. So we have recently, and by the way, I hired a researcher back then before the book came out to prove socially that these concepts were valid. But just recently, we had a report that I created with over 1,000 consumer surveys. And we asked, would you be willing to pay more for customer service? And over 60% of them said, yes, we would. Would you be willing to pay more for convenient service, as in delivery or just an easier process? And the answer was 90+% were willing to pay for convenience, which means that's even more important than just basic service. So if you've got good fundamental customer service and you've got a product that does what it's supposed to do, the true way to differentiate yourself, because by the way, your competitor's trying to do the exact same thing, just be easier to do business with. And that just raises you to a whole nother level.
I liked how you also give the example in the book about how Uber disrupted the entire taxi cab industry.
They did.
But you then immediately follow up with, but let's say you don't think you can be a disruptor of your entire industry. That's not the goal for everybody. And not everybody can even dream of being Uber. And then you come right back with the concept of convenience can simply disrupt your competition.
Yep.
So talk about that a little bit.
So in the 6 convenience principles, I'll give you the example of delivery, which we started to talk about. My car dealership, Kirkwood Audi, one day my wife and I were driving and she goes, oh, there's that car I want you to look at. I was about ready to buy a new car and it was in the window, and I went in to that dealership. I said, look, I just want to look at it. And the guy says, drive it. I go, look, I'm not going to buy the car from you. And I drove it and I came back and I jokingly said to him, what's it going to take for you to put me in this car today? And he goes, that's my line. I go, I know. truthfully, I mean, I live I work next to this other dealership, walking distance from their dealership to my office. The idea is that if I have to drop my car off for service, which I always hate doing because it always takes time, you got to go in, drop it off, do the paperwork. I'm only about a 10-minute walk back to the office. No big deal. And he says, look around. Do you see a waiting area anywhere around here? I look around. I don't see one. He goes, we have one. It's very small. Hardly anybody ever uses it because when you buy a car from us, we bring it to you. And every time you need service, we bring you a new car to drive for the day or however long we're going to have your car. And we'll bring your car back when it's ready. The only time you come in here is to just buy the car. And if you know what car you want, you don't even have to come in. I'll just bring it to you. And I'm thinking, wow. And that's pretty cool. I go write up the deal and let me think about it. He goes, I'm going to write it up, go back to the other dealership and, compare us. And sure enough, they were competitively priced. And I've now bought 3 cars from them. So there you go. After 20 some odd years of buying from the other dealership, they disrupted me with the convenience principle of delivery. One idea, one concept, not all 6. By the way, some companies make it their effort to do all 6. Companies like Amazon, Walmart, Target, internet-based companies often are able to compete on all 6 levels of convenience, but really you only sometimes need one to disrupt that competitor and create that loyalty that you want.
What I like about that story and the whole tying back to the original premise of mentioning Uber is when I'm speaking, the same thing will happen. People will think because I gave an example that was big time that they can't do that. And you immediately overcame that and turned it into an opportunity by explaining that just if you do one of the 6 and make yourself different than your competition, you'll disrupt your competition, which is really what all of us have to do and please that customer. So you talked about only one of the 6, and I think that's manageable. When I hear that, I say Massolutions definitely can do 1 or 2 or 3 of these 6. But if I had to say to my team, we're going to do all 6 starting next week, we'd have some stress. So I love the way that you're making it manageable and saying that just one can make a world of difference.
Yep. So let's real quickly, I want to go through all 6 so they know what they are. The first is to reduce friction, which is an element of all 6, but some companies like Uber, that's one of the things they wanted to choose to do more than anything. Let's make it as easy as possible to have public transportation, like a taxi cab. Before I would pick up the telephone, call the cab company, and they'd say they'll be at your home in 20 minutes. And then I call back in 20 minutes, where's the driver? And I got to get to the airport. Driver shows up. Driver doesn't know where I'm going. I have to tell the driver. Driver puts down the meter. At the end of the cab experience, the typical cab experience, I have to pay the driver as I get out. And Uber eliminated all of that. I can look at an app, see where the car is, see how far away they are, know what it's going to cost before I get into the car and accept the ride to begin with. Outside of the actual drive itself, that's all the friction right there. There's no other friction. I mean, I don't have to pay when I get out. I've already set it up. I do pay. I mean, I don't have to literally take it out of my pocket. They've done a really effective job of reducing friction, and they have competition now in this. But you've got reducing friction, you've got a self-service solution, and that could be going online to getting an answer, getting customer support, or going to a grocery store and going to a checkout line and doing it yourself. Today, you can go online and buy a car and pick up everything you want and then talk to your dealer. That is, in effect, a self-service type of solution. Number 3 is technology, using technology to drive a better experience. Hey, I wanted to go to my dentist. I don't have to call the dentist anymore, be put on hold because the receptionist is busy. I can just go onto a website, look at all the times that are available, look at my calendar, and book it just like that. And so that's technology. And by the way, technology, there's so many ways to use technology. PayPal and Venmo are great ways of transferring money conveniently from me to you. Don't you like that? Me sending you money in a very convenient format that literally takes a minute or less to do. You've got the subscription model, which means things just happen automatically. They come every month, every quarter. I'm a member of the Dollar Shave Club. Every month I get my razor blades. I don't have to think about running out of razor blades ever again. Chewy.com delivers dog food. Microsoft went to the SaaS model, software as a service, where they went from selling you a box with a disk in it that you put in your computer to selling you a monthly subscription. You can now actually subscribe to automobiles. We're not talking about leasing or renting. It's an actual subscription model that you can get automobiles. So companies are figuring out that customers love the convenience of things just happening monthly or quarterly, paying for it annually, paying for it monthly, whatever. So that's subscription. Number 4, wait, that was that number 4. That was number 4. Number 5 is delivery. We talked about delivery, taking it to the customer. Think about how popular today all of the companies that are delivering groceries and meals. Delivery has become part of our culture. Before it was truly just convenience. Now it's almost, you better have an offering of that, because if not, your competitor that does just made it easier for them to do business with. And finally, number 6 is access. Access is accessibility in the sense of geography, time, what are your hours of operation? How close are you to me? An online internet type of site is open 24 hours, 7 days a week. So think about that logistically, geographically, and hours of operation. There's a reason why the independent automotive repair center does better oftentimes than the large dealership, and that is because they're open 6 or 7 days a week. They're open in the evenings, where the auto dealership is, I'm not going to say they're banker's hours, but they seem to sometimes be more convenient to their own people than they are to the customer. So those are the 6 convenience principles.
And those 6 are from the 7th book, The Convenience Revolution of Shep Hyken, Customer Service and Experience Expert. Shep, before we close, a couple things. I know some of my listeners are going to want to hire you. I already told you one of my clients is going to get a bundle of books from you and probably bring you in for a day. Tell people how they can get the books, how they can get all the information about you to learn more about you.
Thanks. Well, my last name is Hyken, Hyken. So just go to hyken.com. If you want to learn more about the books, they're all there. And it says, I think it says store. You should click on that. But you can also go to Amazon and check them out there if you feel comfortable and you want to get them. Although the new Amazon Prime, it's supposed to be, 2-day delivery. It's crazy. Some non-essential items take a little bit longer these days. And I learned that my book was one of those non-essential items.
Shep, thanks for being on the No BS Marketing Show.
Hey, it is my pleasure, an honor, and great questions. And I'm happy to come back anytime and talk some more about this. I'm very passionate about it.
We love having you. And thank you to our loyal listeners, the loyal No BSers. Thanks for listening. Remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea? And build your story around the answer. It's all about bold solutions, no BS.